Hello, Soli Church. We are going to continue our study of the wisdom literature of the Bible, and we are taking a slow trek through the book of Ecclesiastes, just taking it one verse at a time and giving consideration to the wisdom that Solomon grants to us, a wisdom that he received from the Lord. It is a wisdom that he asked for, a wisdom that the Lord granted, and now a wisdom that is encapsulated for us and given to us in this book known as the Preacher, the book of Ecclesiastes. And so I want to remind you that I think it's important for us to not get off the track and think that somehow this is a book about how we should not live, but rather this is a book as to how wisdom does live under the sun. How the wisdom from God recognizes that we live within limitations, that we live without control over events, that the world and the things that take place are unmanageable to us, and that our lives are very temporary. And so the posture that we have in a world like that, a world that is unmanageable by us, a world that is uncontrollable by us, a world in which we are limited in what we can and cannot do, is to fear God, to trust God, to keep his commandments, and to receive the daily life that he has given to us as a gift. And that's it. And so as we read the first couple of verses again, we're going to focus on verse 4. But just a reminder, these are the words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Merest breath, said Kohelet, merest breath. All is mere breath. And then the verse we looked at last week. What gain is there for a man in all his toil, that he toils under the sun? We're reminded from last week that we cannot leverage life with our work. We cannot make our lives more manageable because of the work that we do. Just because we are able to exercise a dominion under the dominion of God does not make us the Lord himself, you see. And so we are not able to replace the Lord's authority or replace the Lord's sovereignty with our small dominion. And we are not able to leverage out the life we want with the work that we have. Well, rather we do our work to the glory of the Lord, and we offer it to him as a sacrifice of praise, and we let him multiply it in the way that he would want to. And then the next verse, verse 4, which is our verse for today, Solomon says this: a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth endures forever. This is just a fresh reminder to us that we are born without our consent. We are a generation that comes onto the scene, and we didn't have a hand in it. We didn't raise our hand somewhere in the past and say, I'd like to be born in 1967 to these parents in this country at this time, right? A generation comes, and it does not ask our consent. And the generation that we are a part of is a generation that God himself has placed us in. And we have no control over that. We have no authority over that. We cannot manage that. And we live within the limitations of that generation, you see. And so this is a reminder to us that we are, as a people, temporary. The generation comes onto the scene, but in order for that to happen, a generation has to go, you see. A generation goes. A generation moves back into the dust from which Adam came. And we have no more control over what generation we came in to what generation we're going out. We have this idea that somehow, some way, our deaths are controllable. When we go out, we have a say. We don't have a say. We don't have a say when we come in, and we don't have a say when we go out. We don't have a say what generation we're a part of. We don't have a say in any of that. And you're like, well, man, if that's the case, then this whole thing, what is the meaning of this? Maybe Solomon does mean vanity and not vapor. And the answer to that is no, you see. Because there's a hand behind the generations. When you were being formed in your mother's womb, it was God that was doing that. God's hand was intimately involved in crafting you in your mother's womb. That Psalm 139 says that. He's the master craftsman of you, your personality, your body, your hair, the lack thereof, the color of your eyes, the structure of your toes. He's the Lord of all of that. But he's also the Lord of how you're going to go out. You see, those days are numbered from the beginning, the psalmist says. So we can do nothing to hasten that day or to put that day off. Our days were written before we were conceived. Written as a poem by the living Lord himself. And so he's written us into a generation in which we stand after the generation that came before the generation that comes after. But the one thing that remains is that the dirt that the previous generation is in and the dirt that we're going to be in is the dirt that's still there. The earth remains, you see. God is still at work on his earth, and he will continue to do that. His kingdom will continue to come on earth as it is in heaven. That's actually going to continue to happen. Generations are going to roll on until the second coming of Jesus. And so wisdom, biblical wisdom, recognizes this. It recognizes the lack of our consent with our birth and our death and the generation that we are in. So what does it do? What does wisdom do? Wisdom trusts the Lord today. Wisdom fears the Lord today. Wisdom grieves the loss today. Wisdom rejoices in the benefits today. Wisdom works hard today, you see. We are not responsible to be faithful in any other place than in the time between our life conception and when we go out. It is faithfulness in the days that God has given to us that wisdom is concerned about. And then a desire and a commitment to pass that wisdom on to the next generation who will trod this earth after we do. Lord bless you.